Good evening and welcome to this media engagement with the former Minister of Youth and Sports, Solomon Dalung. You're welcome to the Whistler, sir. Okay, you are facing significant legal battles ahead of 2027. How did you get to this point?
Is anybody struggling to bring change must be aware of the consequences and must also be aware of things like what we're going through. So for some of us who are of the revolutionary orientation, it's not coming to us as a surprise. And we're even expecting more hurdles ahead of 2027. Like me, I know that the final trump card Tinubu will want to play is to behave like Salmak of Senegal, where he will want to lock up all opposition elements so that they can pave way for him, because President Tinubu is not prepared for a contest. And I always hear those who sort of deceiving him, tells him that, oh, he has never lost election. No. Tinubu has never won any election. Free and fair contest, no. He had always been manipulating himself into office, right from the Senate of the abortive Third Republic to becoming governor, and how he changed 3 different deputy governors in 8 years. He wasn't even the person who had the ticket of the AD. So he has always been wangling himself in. And that is why he sort of beat his chest to say, okay, I've never lost an election. But this is the first election which he knew he's going to face and he's afraid of. Even with 31 governors around him singing on your dollar we shall stand, he's not certain. Even with the resources of the fuel subsidy, which he has been unable to account for a dime, he's still not sure of himself. Even with the borrowings, external borrowings and domestic borrowings, that is over 100 trillion, more than one has ever been borrowed from 1960 to 2023, he's not sure. So there is nothing he cannot do. So where we are is just a deliberate mischief orchestrated to throw spanners at works of the opposition, stifle it, strangulate it, frustrate it, and make it possible for the coronation of a Nigerian monarch in 2027.
The president said he is not behind the ordeal the ADC is facing. You keep the ADC keeps saying the president is behind the party and all that. Is the president responsible for the law, the cases in courts? I don't know.
No, the president said so because he was playing the ostrich until God answered the prayers of the opposition when his chief of staff went to the 50th birthday of one of the core conspirators they are using to throw spanners at works. And he didn't know that he was under camera. And he opened up all that they were doing. He did mention that they were given funding, they were given moral and spiritual support. They were giving every form of assistance to those they are sponsoring to scatter. That was the language of the chief of staff of the president. So it will be shameful and embarrassing that a president will come and say he is not responsible. I think he said that he didn't know God was going to catch them. But for us, we thank God in heaven for disgracing them and exposing them the more, so they have nothing to deny anymore.
You talked so much about victory. You have this confidence that there will be a likely victory of the ADC, but you have nothing on ground to show for it, particularly in the South. The party appears not to be resonating. It's confined to the leadership in the FCT that keeps talking about ADC's victory. How are you going to secure this?
Well, I'm not among those people who talks about victory because I'm a revolutionary. I only celebrate when I conquered, when I win.
Okay.
So I appreciate the fact that there are Herculean challenges. That's why I told you that for me, I'm even preparing for detention in prison because Tinubu will do that.
How do you mean?
All these opposition leaders will be detained. The former president of Senegal did that when he was facing a terrible situation like Tinubu because he bought everybody, thought he has conquered the political space just for him to realize that he was going to be defeated. So when he had the intelligence that he was going to be defeated, he lumped up all the opposition politicians and detained them. 2 weeks to the election, the intelligence still indicated that he was not going to win the election, even with them in detention. So that was when he wanted to cancel the election. And he realized that the election is not a national question. It's not a municipal question. It is an international question. So the nations of the world and insurgencies came upon him, forced him to go for election. And for him, he thought he has won because all of them are in detention. So he wanted to create a semblance of a contest and release the list of all the opposition that are in detention, a young man, and release him 2 weeks to election. And the opposition defeated him overwhelmingly. That is Tinubu's fate. That is what would befall Tinubu. So for me, I'm not talking about victory. Those you hear them talking about victory are people who do not appreciate the magnitude of what we are into. But those of us who knew, I'm not just celebrating. That is not that will make me happy now. I can only be happy when Tinubu will bid us farewell as he walk into that his airbus which will return. And then I will know that, oh, we have champagne to pop up. But for now, I mean, it's a very serious business. You have seen me in contemporary times dressing in red. And once I'm in red, it signifies how the magnitude of the challenges ahead. So there's nothing to celebrate. But those who celebrating are all these political comedians.
The question is, INEC will be conducting this election, and whoever INEC declares as a winner stands, and then you go to court to contest it. Are you prepared to accept this result at the end of the day?
Well, the act of declaration of results is a constitutional responsibility imposed upon INEC. But that if they will betray that sacred responsibility, just like they are known to be doing, they may not get away with it this time again. Because we have learned enough from their treachery of betrayal of the sacred trust of declaration. The responsibility there requires that they declare results of election collated, not results of election fabricated by them. So once they fabricate results and they are giving explanation while declaring the results, we will know that they are behaving true to type. And of course, you know that the Nigerian people are more organized, more prepared, more agitated, more aware, consciously alert to defend the integrity of democracy ever than before.
The ADC appears to have lost confidence with the conduct of INEC, and particularly in INEC chairman. You called for the suspension of INEC or the outright removal of the INEC chairman. But he is still in power. So what option do you have?
No, it's not the ADC. is the chairman of INEC that passed a vote of no confidence in himself because he failed the integrity test.
Yeah.
So all we are doing is that having passed a vote of no confidence himself, we are helping him to know that he doesn't have the moral, legal authority to remain there. It's not that we passed the vote of confidence. We didn't ask the INEC chairman to go and exercise powers that did not belong to him. We didn't ask the INEC chairman to go and, in 2022, publish in his Twitter handle that victory is sure for APC. We didn't. It wasn't ADC that asked him to do that. It wasn't ADC that asked him to pull down and change the name of his Twitter handle. It wasn't ADC that asked INEC to go and embark on the incongruous and shameless internal investigation, forensic investigation of themselves. They are the suspect, they are the prosecutor, they are the investigator, they are the judges in their own cause. These things were not caused by ADC. Ours was just a help. Because when the chairman of INEC set his father's house on fire, as good neighbors, our job is to raise an alarm. So we raise an alarm that this man has passed a vote of no confidence in himself. He has no integrity. He's a card-carrying member or a sympathizer. We don't have evidence of card to prove, but he's a sympathizer of APC. And there is nobody who has integrity that will not own up to his past. So if I were a Mopitan, I will say, yes, I wrote that Twitter text because I believe APC was going to win. It couldn't have meant that I am a sympathizer. But as an academician and an intellectual, a researcher, from my research, I was quite certain that they are going to win. And it doesn't show any affiliation. That it would have been a more reasonable defense. I don't know why he's not recruiting intelligent people to help defend him. And he's gathering clowns and morons around him. They are putting him deeper into integrity scandal. Because from bringing down and changing the name, it raised a question about his integrity. And then from there, moving to set up an internal forensic audit by INEC staff, again, exposed the degree of mental bankruptcy of the type of characters you gathered in INEC. One of them should have been more intelligent to know that we can't preside over our case. I mean, but they did it, and they were not even ashamed of even publishing it. They were happy to publish the rubbish. And these are the type of people that you project to represent the electoral integrity of a very populous, proud, great black nation with very intelligent and brilliant people. And then you have morons misrepresenting us.
He said God spoke to him. He consulted God before he took up the appointment. What do you have to say about that?
Well, now that he has referred the issue to heaven, and I am a believer, I've never seen where God corroborates such things. I've also even known that the devil, my Bible says, when the angels gathered in heaven to submit a report to God about what is happening on earth, the devil was sitting there with his own file. Maybe that is the angel that took his own file to God. It could not be among the angels. The devil was sitting there, and God asked him, why are you here? And he said, oh, I've been going around the world. And God said, did you see my servant Job? No, your servant Job is serving you because you gave him everything. Allow me. And God said, okay, I allow you to touch him, but don't touch his life. So from this narrative, you will know that the devil is a part of the executive members of God. He's a member of that spiritual executive council. He has to report. So maybe that is the man that took his own report to God and reply him. I wouldn't know.
The ADC itself is facing internal rift concerning who takes the tickets. The Atiku supporters are canvassing seriously for Atiku. The Obi supporters are threatening that if it is not Obi, then they are bound to support President Tinubu. How are you handling this?
You know, we must appreciate what is politics itself. You see, politics, as defined by one of the classical scholars, that is a struggle for power as to who get what, how, and why. And then Chairman Mao Zedong, my mentor, defined politics as war without bloodshed, meaning that in politics, every tactics of war is deployed. The only thing that do not happen is shedding of blood. But every tactics, military tactics you know, in war, is deployed in politics. And you know, in military tactics, there is maneuver, there is even manipulation, there is reconnaissance, there is even retreat, there is advance, there is decoy. All this, they played out in politics. So sometimes in politics, if I want to sack you here as the MD of this, I will come here and mobilize the staff to come to work late. And if one of them is asked, we say, no, we have been treated unfairly by the MD. He looks upon us as if we are not human beings. And you lose your job. So you can use maneuver, you can use diplomacy, you can use blackmail. But I, Solomon Selkab Dalung, define politics as, in Nigeria, within context, it's a struggle for power using a blackmail, character assassination, and all forms of mischief to whittle down the influence, the visibility of an opponent. So what you find happening in ADC is politics. Why do you have to believe me before you ask your next question?
Okay.
The Ibadan Summit answers the question. Because in Ibadan Summit, the communique is that the opposition parties are going to present one candidate. And the gladiators that were there, because the media did not even name all, but in contemporary times, I've never seen a gathering of political gladiators in Nigeria like Ibadan. And none of them raised his finger there to say, I'm objecting to what they said. It was subjected to a vote, and we all voted for it. None of them, since leaving Ibadan, had tweeted or written and said, I am not part of it, except maybe those who had called themselves as factions. And of course, thank God, they call their real names. Anybody who is a faction is a renegade element who is struggling to cause distortions within his political party. So they said those of them who are struggling to cause disorder are not part of it. Of course, we didn't invite factions. We invited parties.
So, in other words, would the ADC agree to allow the candidate to go to the South, since it's the turn of the South has been canvassed based on rotational presidency?
You see, those who are canvassing the rotational presidency are also aware that the ADC is a coalition of about 7 political parties. And this is the first time we're even having a coalition in Nigeria. We have had mergers, we have had alliances, but this is a coalition. So if it's a coalition, how do you bind a coalition with a zoning arrangement? Unless we sit down to agree on a zoning arrangement and a power shift, then some of these things will be relevant to us. But for now, all I know to the best of my knowledge as one of the leaders, is that the leaders are committed to a credible and transparent process that will produce a presidential candidate that will be acceptable to the Nigerian people. And I don't think we have discussed methods. So when you say a process is credible, you don't impute sentiments in it. It must be a standard that is generally fair. And in this fairness, other variables of the Nigerian political situation must be factored into it. So I think let's take the leaders based on their weights for now.
Let's talk about the court cases. One began today, and then the Supreme Court will be delivering the judgment. What will happen if the Supreme Court judgment does not go your way?
Well, we are even ahead of the Supreme Court judgment. Okay. The majority of those in the coalition are radical thinkers and revolutionary elements. So we think, we always think negatively. We are negative thinkers. We think evil more than good. That's why we don't do evil. Like me, when I leave my house, I looked at my room for the last time because I don't know when I will go back there. That's how I think. So when we went to the Supreme Court, I should not be thinking about winning. In fact, I'm thinking more that the Supreme Court will not give us judgment. Okay. And so what do I do?
So you have plan B.
And so I've worked hard even for that more than the judgment. And that is the thinking of most of the people in the party. So we're ahead of the Supreme Court judgment. Okay. Whether for or against. Okay. Because we are determined not to allow Tinubu coronate himself as a monarch. And so as much as he's doing everything possible to make sure that he frustrates the opposition, we are also doing everything possible under the planet, under the sun, to make sure that he does not succeed in capturing the Nigerian state, destroying our democracy, and plunging the country into chaos.
Okay. Thank you so very much, former Minister Solomon Dalung, for coming to the Whistler to bear your mind on the raging political issues in the country.